After a little bit of trial and error, we did finally get it. A lot more error and trial. I'm sure there was instructions on how to measure that appropriately, but I didn't read them. Hey, I'm Issa, and I'm learning to convert this van all by myself while traveling out of it as much as possible. So with the undermount AC kit, it came with a bag of this. Now, the undermount AC really does not have step-by-step instructions. It's a technical diagram, and you have to read like where wiring harnesses go. And from what I can see, I think some of my stuff was mislabeled, because one of the harnesses that goes from the, I don't know what to call it, motherboard to the control panel, like the display that you play with, is labeled differently, but I know it's the one that fits because the end bits on it are the only ones that are gonna go where they're supposed to go. Anyway, so this bag, this is a gasket, from what I can best tell, that goes within that motherboard control box, so it'll make it weather tight. I just noticed now too, there's washers and nylon lock nuts, and it looks like they're the ones that would secure the compressor. I wish I knew about that. I wish I knew that that's what these were for, because they were included with the other kit, and I'm kind of frustrated because I bought these specific to the nut that goes with the compressor and whatever. It's nice that it's included. I just wish I knew what was. Also another thing, it looks like these are the screws that are gonna do that motherboard, so we're gonna play with that. Maybe it's time for plan B. Okay, I have to ground 4 different wires here, and I lucked out because I have an area here that I can just insert a 1/4 plus nut, and then I will treat that like a chassis ground. So I'm finally lucking out on some stuff. I just used my Dremel to strip away just a bit of paint, so I had the plus nut that had direct metal contact. Now I'm going to put the plus nut in. So this was quite the pistol, and it's, yes, slightly cockeyed despite my best efforts at measuring and keeping it straight. But here was the unforeseen thing. So I realized I didn't have to have it, but I really did want a bracket for the bed. The bed frame's going to come across here. So I went ahead and I put that bracket on, which means this sticks out just slightly in one area from the wall, which is okay. Getting those screws, or those bolt screws, whatever those are called, through this tiny narrow passageway was a lot of fun, directly into the wood. I did pre-drill those. I don't know what size those screws are. They came with the kit. So next I need to take all of the chassis ground bits from here and put them there, and then I think I'll mount the evaporator here. Okay, today in another episode of Big Bummers on the Van Build, I measured out the length of wire I would need to go from basically like the control board and my battery bank to the compressor and the evaporator and all that good stuff. Well, I'm measuring straight distances, so I'm measuring the best I can. And within that measurement, I had the right size and right length of wires just barely left over from my whole electrical build. When I actually went to do it and I pulled the wire through and measured that wire just as my triple check, it was longer. And that's just because it kind of curves and undulates a little bit through the things. So I'm at about 1.5 feet longer for each. The good news is I still can use one of the wires. Bad news is I have to buy a new wire, and that's like $85. It's like $100 when you count the lugs, which is another thing I didn't account for, the lugs I need for the wire. So I'm going to learn how to use my PEX crimper today and start to do some plumbing. I need to work. So with one setback, we'll move on to something else. And I just started going at it. So let me show you what I've done. I added these D-rings to both the gray and freshwater, and those were the D-rings that came factory with my floor, but I've repurposed them into the wood. I've also got this frame. I have decided for ease of use, I'm not going to panel the back of it with 3/4. I've tested it out in the heat and it feels fine. This is an area that's not going to be seen, and I'm going to pick my battles, and that's not one of them. I've also just measured out, but these are not screwed or glued yet. But this is going to be a support, there's a support piece coming across here, so we'll end up screwing into that. And then I'm going to screw that one into the wall, and then these will all be screwed and glued to each other. Of course, I got the knockouts here for the spouts. And then I've also started my water connection. See if we can get in there. I'll have to pull the heater out and show you. But I did mount the, I hope I took video of that, the water pump and the accumulator. And so this is just coming in from the inlet. I have an on-off if I want to have a way to not allow water to come in even through the outside. I don't know why, I just felt I needed that. This was a little bit of troubleshooting. So this is very soft, flexible tubing. And I used a piece of the other one to give it a little more rigidity. And then this is mini cell that I have wrapped under the clamps there. And the reason for that is because this is pretty soft, I was concerned that this could eventually cut into it because I wanted it tight so there'd be no leakages. I have tested it out and it works great. The reason I couldn't use this hose, which is the one that came with like the kit I got, is because every time I clamp these, no matter how tight these clamps were, it would still leak. It's just a small leak. The good news is my water treatment worked very nice. The water beaded very nicely as it tripped. And so I got this tube instead. And I think the reason it was leaking is because, see these ridges? And because I was using a pressure fed system to fill my tank, that it just wasn't the right combo. So I think it will work when I use it to gravity fill into the gray water tank. This here is just a temporary setup because I realized, let's do a story time actually. So when I started to fill the tank and I'm testing out this system here, I was smart enough to realize, oh, I still need to vent it. So I made sure I connected a spout to the vent because I don't want this to get pressurized and explode. Maybe it won't explode, but it certainly shouldn't have only one way in and no way out, which is what was happening if I didn't put that relief in. So I'm like, I'm so smart. I thought to relieve the pressure ahead of time, and if I need any water outlet, it'll go through that. If it went through that, if water went through that, that means I'd have to fill up my 30 gallons and then it would just barely take off the top of it. I had no way of emptying the tank because I had not yet attached anything to these lower spouts. So it had no way of coming out. So thankfully I realized my mistake because my van was at an angle, so the water level was like this, and it hadn't hit this spout yet. So because of that, I was able to quickly put a hose on that and make sure my tank would drain without filling all 30 gallons. Can you imagine 30 gallons? Like how I would be trying to put a little spigot in the thing. I'd have 30 gallons all over my van. So thank goodness that I realized that in time. Hard to see, but that's Saturn, I believe. And next to it is Mars. See, that's Mars. Okay, I have the fan in the van on because it's already, oh, it's already 91 degrees. It's just after 4 a.m. So I had some parts that were going to be arriving. I need the 1/0 wire to finish the AC, which obviously I really need to finish. But there was an issue with shipping or pickup or something, and they did not arrive yesterday like they were supposed to. So I need to just keep on keeping on. So I'm going to work on finishing the plumbing. And my motto is, if I can hear a leaf blower, I can run a drill. So I'm not waking up the neighbors. So as soon as I hear other people making noise, I'll join the cacophony of it. Connect. Riker. Connect. Good boy. Good connect. Good boy. Good boy. Go to your seat. Good boy. Good in your seat. Hey friend, editing Issa here. Yeah, I forgot to record a bunch of stuff. This is why I ended up needing to move my hot water tank, is because I used some solenoid valves. So for the water, freshwater outlet and the gray water outlet. So if you ever need to dump your water tanks, I ended up hooking up solenoid valves. Now this was a little labor of love because I also wired these so they would go to a remote control. Did I record that? Sure didn't. Nope. I don't remember how I did it, but I am going to include the items I used to do it. So hopefully you can kind of figure out what I did. You can also see I'm using the AC, like I'm putting the, is this the evaporator, I believe? Putting that one in place just to make sure everything's going to fit. And then when I put in my plumbing, it's all going to work there. And then it's just a game of measuring all the PEX tubes to make sure they're going to fit from the joints and the things that I've bought both in and out of the water tank. So with both the fresh and gray water tanks, you have to have a couple of things. So they both require an air outlet. So both of those have air outlets coming from the top left of the tank. They both require inlets. So the fresh is going to be that pressurized system you've already seen me rig up here. And then for the gray, it's going to be where everything kind of funnels down and out of the sink. They both need to have an outflow. So that's going to be where you're dumping your gray water, or if you ever need to dump your fresh water tank just to empty it. So they both have those plumbed in. And the fresh water has an additional out spout, and that's going to the water pump, which then feeds to the water filter and the sink. I've done a piss poor job of showing you all of that, but basically I have taken both of the outlet sides of both the fresh and the gray water tanks, and I've hooked them up to these solenoid valves. What these solenoid valves are just electrically controlled, now via remote, once I get that all wired in, ways to dump the water. Why would you want to remotely dump your water? Well, honestly, I think it's easier. I've done my water system a little bit differently, and both of my outpouring things I think are 1/2 inch, essentially a regular garden hose size. Now, you should only ever dump in appropriate areas. Do not just dump willy-nilly, stationary in your campsite. That's disgusting. I don't care what people say if you use biosafe, organic, whatever. No, don't dump your gray water at a campsite. It's disgusting. For mine, I've also rigged up quick connect so I can dump them appropriately. Or I will say, if I am on a busy highway like the I-5, Lord knows the antifreeze and oil that is on that thing, I will take my remote, and on a rainy day, I'll dump that right out. You can deem the appropriateness or not of that. It is what it is, and I've done that to just make my life easier. So thanks for watching this rendition of the Imperfect van build. Judge me as you like, that's okay. I did what I did, and I don't regret it. So 10 out of 10 for the solenoid and remote controlled for dumping as needed. Bye. I'm so in love with this camera. I should have turned the fans on after I was going to talk to you. Nope. 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 It'll be a mystery shot.